I'm going to review this problem on the projector since we're videotaping instead of looking at your whiteboards. So when you look at this, we start off with the two half reactions. We have oxalate yields CO2. To balance this, the first thing to do is to notice that you have two carbons, so we put a 2 in front of the CO2. Now I'm balanced for carbon and I'm balanced for oxygen, so all I have to do is add 2 electrons. And in this practice, we did have one group that forgot to put the 2 in there. And then they went through a lot more work and they found out they had the electrons on the same side in both half reactions. So that's the kind of thing that leads to that sort of mistake. And you look at it and say, oh, something's wrong, because you should have electrons in the 2 different halves on opposite sides. Now let's look at the nitrogen half. We have nitrous acid yields NO. 1 nitrogen, 1 nitrogen. 2 oxygens, 1 oxygen. So we add water. Now I have 2 hydrogens and 1 hydrogen. So we add a hydrogen ion to this side. Then I need 1 electron. So I have 1 half reaction with 1 electron and 1 with 2 electrons. So I multiply the nitrogen half by 2. And I use the carbon half as is. When I add them together, the only thing I can cancel is 2 electrons. And my balanced equation has oxalate plus 2 hydrogen ions plus 2 nitrous acid yields 2 CO2 plus 2 NO plus 2 waters. So this was another practice, and this one gave us a little bit different perspective because we did have something where we started off by multiplying by 2. So always check what you can balance by inspection that's not oxygen and hydrogen. Now let's go ahead and look at what happens when we have a basic solution. If we have a basic solution, we no longer have an excess of hydrogen ions in solution. Now we have hydroxide ions in solution. Before we can do this, we have to recognize the chemistry that can go on. If we have hydroxide ions in solution and we add hydrogen ions to them, we make water. So we're going to use this idea that hydrogen plus hydroxide makes water. Now, to balance something in base, we start off following the first 8 steps we've already looked at, and we balance the equation in acid. Then we look at that equation as it's balanced in acid, and we identify the number of free hydrogen ions that are in that equation. It'll be on one side. We add that number of hydroxide ions to both sides. Then we look at the hydrogen and hydroxide that are on the same side, and we hook them up to make water. Then we can subtract whatever water appears on both sides of the equation. So let's look at an example. We have the permanganate plus the oxalate yields MnO2 plus carbonate. So we'll go through all the steps we've done before. We divide this into 2 half reactions. MnO4 minus yields MnO2. And C2O4 2 minus, the oxalate, yields CO3 2 minus. So I'll start with my manganese half. 1 manganese, 1 manganese. 4 oxygens, 2 oxygens.